Testing. 1, 2, 3, 3, 3. Oh, how time flies. It goes so fast. You think you're in the present and suddenly it's past. Happy New Year and cherish the time you have. And welcome to Backlit Cinema, the podcast. My name is Zoe. That's spelled Z-O or Z to the O for those of you outside of the U.S. This is the 128th episode. Thank you for downloading and streaming. We really appreciate it. We watch movies of yesteryears that I loved when I was growing up in the late 1900s. If you like what you're about to hear, then please tell your family, tell your friends, and tell that swashbuckling, smart-aleck treasure hunter about Backlit Cinema, the podcast. So, thank you for joining us once again. And once again, I have for you a very special guest. What can I tell you about this special guest that I have? Well, let me ask you this question. Since you asking about the special guest, if you're curious about especially heinous acts or the inside dope about some of the most curious crimes ever committed, or if you are in any way fascinated with the dark and the dread or the horror of it all, then you will find common cause with our featured guest host, ladies and gentlemen, and gender nonconforming. I present to you the Countess of Crime Watchers, Autumn Grube.
Hi, that was a hell of an intro. Yeah, that's me. I'm the weird dark one in the corner. Don't let this fuzzy sweater fool you. I'm the host of Autumn's Oddities podcast, and I cover everything from crime, true crime, paranormal. I don't know what made up crime I would be covering, but I don't really cover those. All true crime, paranormal, conspiracy theories, you name it. If it's in the dark corners of the internet or, somebody's basement, I'm covering it. And that's what I like to do with my free time. Social media wise, you can find me on Instagram at Autumn's Oddcast, like podcast, but Oddcast. I've had some issues with Instagram, so I've had quite a few handles. What else am I on? I'm on all of them, but I don't really use them that much. Twitter Xbird, whatever you want to call it. Autumn's Odd Pod. I'm on Patreon at Autumn's Oddities and a proud member of Darkcast Network. That's
awesome.
My spiel.
That's quite the resume that you have there. So since you mentioned Darkcast, that actually leads to my first question. What is the Darkcast Network?
It's a network started a couple of years ago. I think I got added to the network about a month or two after I started podcasting in October of 2021. It's a network founded by CJ from Beyond the Rainbow podcast. CJ has a podcast about crimes in the LGBTQ community. That's what CJ specifically focuses on. And it's just a lot of different podcasts, something like 20 plus podcasts, all different kinds, but mainly staying like in the darker realm. So it's an indie podcast network. Okay.
So what does that mean? Does that mean that you like report to CJ like he's the boss, or is it more like it's like a network where you promote each other's podcasts and shows and whatnot?
CJ, so she started the podcast network, and we don't really report to her or anything. Like, we just have to make sure we're promoting each other and putting out content, based on the schedule that we set, and that's it. It's just promotion on all the social medias with each other. It's good exposure.
Awesome. So
good way to get other people to listen to you that otherwise wouldn't find you.
So CJ is not your like dark lord.
No, CJ is like the nicest person alive. No, she's like the nicest person there is.
That's totally awesome. So
yeah, I'm going to tell her you said that.
As you said that you're very active on Instagram. So that's something else that, like, in order to come up with some decent questions to ask my guests, I have to do a little bit of stalking. So I stalked your Instagram page. Lots of beautiful pictures of you and your family. And then one curious picture that I saw that'll lead to some other questions. So the first,
I'm afraid.
So the picture that I'm referring to, it's you standing against a woman dressed as Elmo. So this looks like maybe it's a Halloween photo. And then you're standing next to a very tall woman. And then I think on the other side of her is, I'm presuming to be your husband. And then another woman. So the question is, is that woman that tall or are you that short?
What woman?
It's she's like dressed in black and white. She almost looked like she reminds me of not the Little Shop of Horrors. Oh my god, I forgot already. It's the movie with the lips.
Black and white.
It's the Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's I don't want to say it's an old picture, but I did dig deep.
Frankenfurter?
Yeah, she looks like Frankenfurter.
Oh, is she really tall?
Yeah, she's really tall.
And it's old?
Yeah, it's an old one. And you're standing next to another woman dressed as Elmo.
I think it's my friend Hannah. So it's 3 women.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's my friend Hannah. She is very tall.
Right.
And she also likes to wear heels. I'm not going to say what she says about wearing heels. She likes to wear heels to weed out the P words.
Okay.
So that's what she says about heels. You should not have asked me about her. That's going to open a whole can of worms.
I've only asked because I really wanted to know.
Wildest times in my life.
Right. I really wanted to know if she was that tall. It was like, oh my god.
Yeah, no, she's 6 feet tall. I'm 5'6".
Wow.
She's 6 feet tall, and she's always wearing heels. I don't wear heels because I tore my knee in college, but she always wears like at least a 4-inch heel.
Right.
So that puts her like at 6'4". My husband's like 6'2". She's taller than him in heels.
And that was him standing next to her.
I think so. Yeah, my God, that's hilarious.
She was definitely towering over everybody.
She does. She's got a personality to match too.
That's pretty awesome. So, I also see a lot of pictures of you at live shows. Do you attend a lot of live shows?
Yep. I've seen one band called The National probably 15 times, something like that. I used to go to a lot of festivals in my younger days. I'm too old to do all that anymore. Like I went to a festival that like I didn't even stay at all day. It was the Nationals Festival, and it was mostly like older people, like 30s, 40s. It was just too much for me. I'm like, no, I don't do this anymore. Like if you're not like turned all the way up, like the youngsters do, then those things aren't fun anymore. Right. I can't do it. I cannot be around that many people.
Are they like a cover band or are they?
No, they are like, they came up in like the indie sleaze era, the early, like late 2000s. Obama featured them in a couple of campaign ads. They did like a whole bunch of stuff for his campaign. And that's how I found out about them, was working on his campaign. And that was a long, long time ago, like 2006 or something like that, 2007. But I followed them around to a bunch of different shows, and yeah, they also wrote. I'm not a Taylor Swift fan. I'm not going to say anything bad about her, but I'm not a Taylor Swift fan. They wrote most of her last 2 albums.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. Oh, so
so people know who they are now, and nobody used to know who they were. And like, damn it!
Right, yeah. When you get
like, no, they're taking my thing.
When you're able to get your work out there, then that tends to happen. People tend to know about you.
Yeah, no, good for them because they're getting commercial success. But I'm like, I used to walk around being like, oh, you've probably never heard of them, The National, and feeling superior because I know who the cool band is, and now people know who they are, and yeah.
Well, now you can counter with
for them.
I knew who they were before they were cool.
Yeah, I know. I try not to say that.
You try not to say that.
Don't be that person.
Yeah.
Don't be that person. Don't gatekeep.
I try not to be that person, but I'm totally that person.
Yeah, I kind of am too. I'm like, I'm not going to say anything bad about her because I know what's going to happen. The Swifties, they come in their swarms, and I'm not going to say a word.
Right.
She's a lovely person. I don't know her, but I'm sure she is.
Awesome. So you surround yourself with horror. I see a lot of horror themes around the photographs you take. So is that what led you to the legal profession? Or was it something else entirely? I understand that your work in the legal profession is far different from anything that would lead to crime or horror or anything like that.
So the way that happened, like I went to college, undergrad, didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no idea. I just randomly picked political science, and then I ended up taking like a bunch of biology classes too. So I graduated with a major and a minor in political science and biology. Then I went to grad school for the first time, did a double master's in biology and political science. And then I was like, well, I'll take the LSAT, the exam for law school. And the DAT for dental school, and whichever one I get a better score on and whoever offers me money, that's where I go. And I got offered money to go to law school in Florida. And so I went, and it was a weird time, but I met my husband there. So that's how I got into the legal profession. And then once I got into it, I was just like, even though like I'm pretty good at this, it's just not really for me.
Right.
It became a little soul crushing. And also I'm just like too weird to be in an office situation. Like I don't know. It's very hard to be around people when like your interests are like you have skulls all over your house and creepy stuff everywhere. And it looks like Halloween year round in my house, even when it's Christmas, like it looks like Halloween in our house. And that's just always how I've been. Like I stayed up watching Tales from the Crypt Keeper with my dad when I was like 2 or 3. That's what I wanted to watch. I've just always liked that stuff. It doesn't scare me.
Right.
I love movies in general, but I really love horror movies.
Awesome.
I know The Mummy's not a horror movie, but yeah.
Right. That's an interesting choice. But I don't admittedly have a whole bunch of horror movies on the grand list. I do have a different version of the grand list that has a few horror movies, but like because these are movies that I'm particularly caught into, I don't have a bunch of them on there because I don't watch a lot of horror. I get horrified very quickly.
Oh no, nothing scares me. I laugh in haunted houses. I've made like the actors in haunted houses laugh before.
Right.
Like,
that's pretty awesome.
Nothing scares me.
So, wow, a couple of questions came up and they're competing for space in my brain. So excuse me as I update.
This is why I don't. Like, I know nobody can see me, but I can see myself right now. You can see me. And this is why I'm not on YouTube. People are like, why don't you get on YouTube? It's like, because of the faces I make. I can't do this. I'm just going to constantly be getting comments like, why do you make so many faces? I physically cannot stop myself.
Actually, that's pretty awesome. That's perfect for YouTube, is making a bunch of faces.
God. Yeah.
So, all right. Here's a question that'll lead to like the next segment. So you have, you were in a legal profession. Do you think that your interest in true crime would lead you to be something like a criminal attorney?
Yeah, I thought it might, but I was kind of dissuaded from being a criminal attorney because of the danger of it. There's not, I mean, just from what I was told from my criminal law professor, he said it's extremely, extremely dangerous. He's like, you're working with criminals like, and sometimes violent criminals, and they know where you work and they know where you're at all day. And if you lose a case, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want that. I'm already super paranoid, about something happening to me. I'm always like hyper vigilant anyway. I was like, I don't need that in my life. I'm going to do something like where somebody's not going to come in the office and hurt me. If I lose their case, we're going to go a different way. Like we're going to go with lemon law. Yeah, I know. my if I ever hear that again, I swear, just calls all day. I got a lemon. No. No. Like, I don't want to take it. You don't have a lemon. Did you go to a buy here, pay here lot and buy a clunker? Well, buddy, I can't help you with anything. And that was in Florida too. I was working in Florida at the time, and that was, the calls you get in that place. Nothing against Florida, but living there is different than just about anywhere else.
Right. That's crazy. I can't imagine. I've never heard of anybody saying that, like being a criminal attorney. I never heard anybody saying they got threatened by the client or anything like that.
Oh, he said he was a judge.
Oh, wow.
His last name was Swartz, and he was a judge in Miami. And he said that people used to cut off the heads of chickens, throw them at his house, leave him on the stairs of the courthouse, like put threatening notes on his car, all kinds of stuff. I'm like, yeah, I'm good to not ever do that. I'm good. If I ever get a chicken with the head cut off on my front porch, we're moving.
Right.
We're probably gonna burn the house first just to be safe, and then we're going to move.
Right. Yeah.
My country came out just now.
Yeah, I imagine judges having issues and complications with criminals. So
yeah. No, he said he had a problem too when he was an attorney, and that like a lot of women just kind of like don't like to get into the field because of the worry of someone coming to attack them. And I'm like, that makes all the sense in the world to me.
Yeah, it does.
And I was good at criminal law. It's just, I don't know, maybe it's the fact that like my hobbies are like true crime related and stuff like that. Like I just didn't want like my work to overlap, because then I felt like I would hate it. You know what I mean? Like then it would become work, and it would no longer be fun.
Right.
Like writing a podcast, it's work and it isn't.
Yeah.
It's at least what, it's at least what I'm interested in.
Right. So speaking of your podcast, Autumn's Oddities, what I really like is that how you present the podcast and how it just flows and how you tell the stories of these terrible crimes that happen. And there are times when you can relate to specific crimes that have happened, and you can tell stories of the things that happen in your life that are true crime related. So I think that's fascinating. I think that you do incredible work on your show.
Thank you. I'd like to be an open book. I am autistic, so I'm high functioning autistic. And that's one of the features of some people with autism is we overshare. And yeah, I'm an oversharer. I feel like that's the only way to get to know people is I tell them everything. And that's what I did to my husband on our first date, and he stuck around. So I'm like, if you tell them everything, if you show them all the crazy and they come back, then it's meant to be.
Sounds around. If she blow chunks and she stays, she's a keeper.
Yep, exactly. I was going to say that, but I didn't know if you would get the reference. I reference Wayne's World all the time. I didn't know. Like, I do it all the time. I like reference TV shows and movie quotes constantly, and people don't know what they are, and they think I said it, and then I have to be like, I didn't come up with that. Like, yeah, that was extremely
right.
Like, I didn't say that. So I don't want them to be like watching the show or the movie and then be like, Autumn said that.
Right,
well, I thought she made that up.
Right. I do that all the time.
You and she bails.
Right. The only thing is that I'm heavily into science fiction and Star Trek and Star Wars in particular. So when I get into that diction, nobody understands what I'm saying except, fellow fans. I have to speak within my own community when I want to communicate sometimes.
Yep. I try as well.
Right. So we've established that horror is your favorite genre. Could you tell me some of your favorite horror movies?
Oh, every time I get asked a favorite movie when I have not thought about it, my mind goes completely blank.
Me
Does
too.
yours also do that? Yeah, every time I'm like, what's a movie? I've never seen a movie. Okay, let me think.
What are those?
What are movies? I know that Donnie Darko is not like on its face a horror movie, but I think some people would consider it a horror movie. That's just one of my favorite movies in general is Donnie Darko. I know it's depressing as hell, but like I have to take a couple days like to myself after I watch that movie. I'm like, oh God, that was so much. What else? Favorite horror. What do I watch all the time? I like old horror too. Rope by Alfred Hitchcock is one of my favorite movies of all time. If you haven't seen it, see it. I think it's streaming somewhere. I watched it pretty recently, but it's two like upper crust Ivy League guys that have just graduated. They decide to throw a dinner party. They have killed their friend and colleague. They've strangled him with a rope. They decide to host the dinner party with his family coming, all their friends. They leave his dead body in a trunk in the room that they're having the dinner party in. And in fact, they serve dinner off of it. Yeah, it's a pretty messed up movie. That one, Rear Window, is one of my favorites. I like Hitchcock a lot. Newer horror, Cabin in the Woods. I know it's not like really a horror movie, but it's one of my favorites just because it's a Joss Whedon jam. I know he's problematic lately, but I'm a massive Buffy fan, like absolutely huge.
Right.
Yeah, those are some of my favorites. I'm sure I'll think of something else later. I've got lots more. But again, like if ever I get asked something point blank, I'm like,
Right.
Nope.
I tend to not watch a lot of horror movies until I'm encouraged to by like friends of mine and associates or whatever. So a recent one that I saw was called A Knock at the Cabin. I think it's called The Knock at the Cabin or Knock on the Door of the Cabin.
It's the one with Batista, right?
Yeah, that's the one with Batista.
I thought about watching it, but if it involves like kids, I have a really hard time.
Well, they don't actually,
even though I love Poltergeist.
they don't actually kill the kid. As a matter of fact,
yeah,
the kid is never the target. I can spoil that much.
I figured it's one of the dads, right?
Well, I don't want to spoil it too much.
Yeah.
But
okay. Well, as long as nothing happens to the kid, I can watch it.
Right.
But if anything happens to kids in anything, it hurts me. It like kills me to watch it. I don't know why. I guess it's because I have two kids, but my son is almost 15, so it's been like this for a long time. My son's almost 15. My daughter is almost 4.
Right. Yeah. Nothing happens to the kid, but I would recommend that one. I really enjoyed that one. And the other one, well, this movie just came out. It's not necessarily a horror movie, but it's horror adjacent because the way it's depicted. So that's Godzilla -1. I
cannot wait to see that. Yeah. I am so excited. The reviews that I've read from people whose opinions I respect, I'm like, okay, I gotta see this. People are saying it's one of the best movies they've ever seen. The effects are incredible. I'm really excited for it.
Yes,
we're going to watch Oppenheimer tomorrow. Is it out for rent yet? Because I'm going to watch it if it is.
Yeah, well, I think so. Yeah, because I think I've seen it in the stores. It's definitely streaming. So, yeah, it's.
Well, we're either watching that or Oppenheimer tomorrow on New Year's Eve.
That's awesome.
We like to party.
Yeah. So in Godzilla -1, there's a specific scene where Godzilla is chasing the boat, and that's one of the scenes where it's like it really leans heavily on the horror aspect.
It's horror. I mean, that is horror. It's a kaiju. It's a freaking radiated monster. Yeah. Like that is horror. That's absolutely horror.
Absolutely. So now that we've established all of this, let us go over to our next segment. Why don't you tell us about the movie that we watched?
1999 cinematic classic, The Mummy. It is about a librarian, Evelyn Carnahan. She wants to prove that, she's more than just a clumsy librarian. She wants to prove that she is a serious ancient Egyptian scholar to her colleagues. I guess they're the Bainbridge scholars, I think, and she works at the British Museum. She gets the chance when her brother he wins, I think it's in a poker game, an ancient artifact, and a map as well to the fabled city of the dead in Egypt. And she needs help to find the city. I cannot remember the name of the city. I'm blanking right now. Give me a minute. I'll remember. But she finds an ex-soldier who's in prison for having a really good time, is what the jailer says he's in prison for. And together with her brother, they find the ancient city. They dig around. She reads some book, that she's definitely not supposed to read. Never ever speak Latin or any other ancient language in front of the books. And people start dying.
Absolutely.
Without giving too much away. If you haven't seen it, 1999. You should have seen it.
Yeah, no worries. We're going to spoil the hell out of this movie later on, but I like to write these things where it sounds at least tantalizing in the beginning. Uh-huh. So this movie was released May 7th, 1999, produced by Universal Pictures and Alphaville Films. It grossed over $155 million in the U.S. and Canada and over $416 million worldwide on a reported budget of $80 million. So
that ain't bad.
This came out a while ago. Let's put that in the context in today's dollars. So in today's dollars, that $155 million that it grossed in the U.S. would be around $285 million today. And that 416...
Inflation.
Yeah, I know. Inflation, yeah. And that $416 million that it grossed worldwide, so that's combining the U.S. and worldwide gross, would be around $766 million today. So yeah, pretty near $1 billion. It's north of 500,000. So that's pretty good take.
Yeah, it's also my favorite ride at Universal Studios.
It's a lot of people's favorite ride.
Again and again and again and again.
Did you chant Imhotep when you were in line?
No.
That's
I know
thing.
that. Do you mean when you stick your hand in the thing and make his?
They say that, like in the thing that I read, they said the line is so long sometimes that people in line would just start chanting Imhotep like they do in the movie.
Nope. I have been in a line that's pretty long there. I used to we lived in Tampa, so we would drive to the Universal in Orlando almost every weekend. My husband and I, we had annual passes, and we did that for like 2 years.
Right.
So we've been on the Mummy a lot. And then we started getting like express passes whenever we moved and would come back. We're like, no, we're not going to stay in the line. You can stand in a line if you live there, you know what I mean? And you got time. But if you're just coming on vacation, you got to get that express pass so you don't wait in the line.
So, and finally, the budget I mentioned was $80 million. In today's dollars, that'd be 147 million, around 150 million. So that's funny because that's a pretty good budget for a movie. That's some deep pockets right there. So
they used quite a lot of CGI.
Yeah, they did. And at the time, that was cutting edge CGI.
Oh my God. I remember seeing it. I'm like, wow, it looks so real. Like I know what a mummy would look like.
Right. And as it definitely has aged, but at the time it looked incredible. And some of the effects still stand out. But the mummy
pretty good.
Yeah, but the mummy effect in particular, not so much, not quite.
He didn't look so great. No, he didn't look so great. Not really.
So, let's go and talk about who starred in the film. This movie was starring Brendan Fraser. He plays the very masculine named Rick O'Connell. That's about as heroic as a name that you could possibly have.
Yep.
You've probably also seen him in Crash, Encino Man, School Ties, and more recently, The Whale and Killers of the Flower Moon. I just wanted to point out that it's like he had kind of vanished for a little while. And then, he would have like really small cameo parts. Like he had a tiny cameo part in G.I. Joe and the Rise of Cobra and stuff like that. Or he would have like voice acting parts. But then he starred in this little show called what is that show called? And I'm blanking on the name of the show. It's like I had it at the tip of my head, and then it disappeared. It's a superhero show. It's
superhero.
Yeah, he started in the superhero show as Robot Man, and that basically revived his career.
Okay.
So and then that's he started getting bigger parts like The Whale and Killers of the Flower Moon, and we're probably going to see him in a lot more parts now. But that.
I hope.
You know what? I think that by the end of the podcast, I'm going to remember the name of the show. But as of right,
like my husband said something about it. To be honest with you, I might remember it.
Right. It's not Teen Titans. It's the No, it's not Suicide Squad. But it's a name that's related to Suicide. Like it sounds like it would be Suicide Squad, but it's not. It's. I hate finding.
We'll figure it out.
I hate myself for forgetting. I will remember it later on. But if you could tell us the next actor.
Yes, that's Rachel Weisz. She plays Evelyn Evie Carnahan. You may have also seen her in The Constant Gardener. She does some pretty high art films. The Lobster, which I actually liked. A lot of people did not like that movie. It was a pretty messed up movie. The Whistleblower and Black Widow. I thought Black Widow was a ton of fun, but it was really sad, obviously, because you know how that's, you know what I mean?
Right.
You know how that's ending. Not
right.
that movie, how that movie's ending, but you know how the whole thing ends.
Right.
Or the Black Widow. I know you do because you got a Marvel shirt on.
Yeah, I absolutely loved the Black Widow. It's like I get people's what do you call it? Their consternation with it, you know, the when the movie came out and all that kind of stuff. But I really enjoyed that movie. I had a fun time with it, and I really liked what's her name?
David Harbour.
Well, David Harbour.
Rachel Weisz, Florence Pugh.
Florence Pugh. That's the one. That's my baby. I really liked her.
Oh, I love her. I love her in Midsummer. Oh, that's one of my favorite horror movies. There we go. Midsummer.
There you go.
Yeah. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, when I saw her in that, well, at least playing she will eventually be known as a White Widow, I guess. But when she was playing that role in Black Widow, she was incredible in that role.
Oh yeah, I thought she was great.
Right, and then she did a great job in not Sorry to Bother You. What's that called? Don't Worry, Darling. I think that's what it's called. And she was great in that movie too. She absolutely carried that movie.
She's in a new one too called A Good Person, I think, with Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, that's
Zach Braff directed it because they dated for a long time.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's already on streaming.
That's a weird pairing, but yes, it's a weird pairing. Well, each their own. I mean, he's funny.
Right.
So, yeah.
They figured it out as
yeah.
So up next is John Hannah. He plays Jonathan Carnahan, and he's been in 4 Weddings and a Funeral, The Hurricane, and The Words. I'm only familiar. I'm not familiar with the first 2.
4 Weddings and a Funeral I've seen. It's a Hugh Grant movie.
Right. I am familiar with the first movie. That's what the first 2. That's what I meant to say.
The Hurricane I've not seen. The Words I think I have.
Yeah, that's the one I wanted to say.
Sure.
I'm not
Yeah.
familiar with the words, but it stars oh gods, I forget people's names. That dude that's making a movie right now with the he's playing a composer, Bradley Cooper's. It stars.
Oh yeah, Bradley Cooper, Maestro.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really good with people's like celebrity names and movie names. So if you like to start explaining something and you can't remember who it is, I'll get it. That's what my husband does. He says like 2 words.
Right.
He's like, that guy, he was in the movie, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I got it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be this
That's
way.
one of my favorite things to do.
I'm going to be doing that for the entire show.
Okay, that's fine. I'll pick it up.
But what really grabbed me about Jonathan Carnahan is that after he did this, he did a show called, I think it was Spartacus. So it was a show that came on cable. I can't remember which channel, but he plays an entirely different character. Like in The Mummy, he's like cowardly and skittish, and he's like a con man.
He's just a lush, kind of like rich boy,
right? But who
can't stay out of trouble.
In Spartacus, he's like he's mean, he's confident, he basically carries himself like an emperor. He's a guy that owns like a stable of gladiators. And
nice.
And one of the gladiators happens to be Spartacus. So it was a fascinating show. But him in that show, he's so different from what he played in The Mummy. I was like, oh my God, is it the same guy?
Yeah, I love Jonathan. Jonathan's one of my favorites.
Yeah. So who's the next guy?
Oh, the Mummy himself, Arnold Vosloo, Imhotep. He was also in Blood Diamond with Leonardo DiCaprio. G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra. Is that the one where Channing Tatum got killed like immediately?
No, that's the second one. That's Retaliation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was funny. I remember sitting in the theater and I'm like, did they really just kill him? I was like, I thought he was the star.
Right.
And also he's been in Odd Thomas, which I know I've seen. I think that movie was out like quite a while ago.
Right.
I just recognize him. Like, he's a pretty recognizable dude.
Yeah, he is.
I saw him in something else, and I was like, that's Imhotep. Like, recently, too.
Right.
That's all he'll ever be known as. That's okay.
Right.
That's okay.
Yeah, I think so. Because he's done a lot of work. He's done a lot of work in television. He's done a lot of voice-over work or voice acting work. But, only his most prominent role, like whenever I see him, it's going to be Imhotep.
Yep.
That's him. Anyway, up next is Kevin J. O'Connor. He plays Benny Garber or Gaber.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And he's been in Deep Rising and Van Helsing. What's interesting about him is that he looks completely different, it seems, in every role he takes. But he's also like the funniest character in this film. Yeah,
he definitely plays a rat in the movie.
Yeah,
Benny. You get your comeuppance, Benny.
Right.
I like how he has every religious medallion on his chest, and he's just like, trying one. He's like, one of these is going to work.
Right.
For the reason that he thinks it does, not for the reason he thinks. Who else we got? Jonathan Hyde. Oh, okay. I know who he is. Titanic, Anaconda. He plays Dr. Alan Chamberlain. He typically plays a bad guy. Also, isn't he the dad/bad guy in Jumanji? I think he is.
Oh man, I haven't seen
Alan's
Jumanji.
Dad in Jumanji, and he's the bad guy. You know how the characters in the Jumanji game that he's fighting are people in real life, just like dressed up.
Right.
The dad/hunter is same dude.
Right. I hadn't seen Jumanji in a long time. It's time for a rewatch.
But I watched it a lot. One of my favorites.
Up next is Oded Fair. I hope I said that right. I should have checked the pronunciation.
That sounds right.
So he plays a character named Ardith Bay. He's also been in Deuce Bigalow, Male Gigolo, and Resident Evil Extinction. It's funny, right? Because he has such a distinctive look, but I don't remember him in any of these movies.
Me neither.
Specifically, maybe I didn't see Resident Evil Extinction.
I saw it, but I don't super remember it. I did see it.
But he's also very well played in this movie.
Yeah. Who else do we have? Eric Avari, Dr. Terrence Bay. He was in Mr. Deeds and Stargate. And I am having a hard time remembering who Dr. Terrence Bay is.
Yeah, I put him on here because I think I know who. I remember now. So he plays, Oh, you know what? I got everybody mixed up. That's what happened. I got them mixed up in my. So Oded Fair, I think he was the guy that played the Magi, like you said, with the tattoos.
Oh.
That guy.
I do remember him in Deuce Bigalow.
Right, okay.
Then that is him. I remember him in Deuce Bigalow.
Right.
Okay,
and then
we got it.
Eric Avari, Dr. Terrence Bay, he's the Egyptologist that they went to who burnt the map on purpose, where it looks like an accident. He pretends that it's an accident.
It did not look like an accident.
Right. The funny thing is, like, when I was watching, it's been a while since I watched the movie, so I forgot to find a point. So when he burnt the map, I was like, how could this dude be so inconfident? And then doesn't seem to care.
Yeah, no, he knew exactly what he was doing.
Right. And then the last one is Omid Jalili. Or Jalili. So this is what happened, because I mixed up these characters in my head. So Omid Jalili, this is the funny guy. He plays Warden Gad Hassan, and he's been in The Infidel and The Gladiator. And he was the guy that I wanted to have that I couldn't remember from Deuce Bigalow, and that's because I don't think he was in Deuce Bigalow.
I was like, I could not think of. No, I remember the Magi being in Deuce Bigalow. I remember that.
Right.
That makes a lot more sense.
Right. Also,
for him to be playing a male escort. Yeah.
Right. And also,
the other guy.
Oded Fair, the guy who played the Magi, he's also I've seen him more recently in Star Trek Discovery. He plays like.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't watched it yet.
Right. He plays like the overall admiral of Starfleet in a later episode.
Nice. Good for him. He's been promoted.
Right.
He's gotten a promotion. Well, the director of this film was one Stephen Summers. He's also directed G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra. So that makes sense. We got some borrowing. Also, Odd Thomas, Van Helsing. We're seeing some overlap. He's doing a Wes Anderson thing where he likes to keep the same cast, just keep rotating them. And also The Jungle Book and Deep Rising.
Yes, absolutely.
None of those are my favorites, but they're all right. The Jungle Book, was it the live action one?
Yeah, the live action Jungle Book.
I guess it has to be because the cartoon was a long time ago, and that was also Disney, I'm pretty sure. Right.
This is the Disney live action version of the Jungle Book, and of all of the live action, it's one of the better ones. So it's up for me. It's up there with something like I'm trying to think of what it's called. Aladdin. I think Aladdin was pretty good. I didn't see a lot of them though, so I don't have a lot to compare it to. Because I know there was a Beauty and the Beast, and I didn't watch that one. And then there was a couple more. Mulan. I didn't watch that one. And
didn't watch it either.
Yeah. So I didn't watch a lot of them just because I never got around to it. But the Jungle Book was actually pretty good. It was entertaining.
I figured it'd be easier to make that one than a lot of other movies live action.
Right.
CGI some animals.
So this movie was written by Stephen Sommers. Again, he likes to write a lot of the movies that he directs. And there's also Lloyd Fonville or Fonville. I'm not exactly sure.
Either way.
And Kevin Jarre. Thanks. It's going to have to be either way.
Yep. He's cool with it. He's just happy to be here.
Right. So Sommers, he also wrote Gunman, The Adventures of Huck Finn and Van Helsing.
Okay.
And then Fonville, he wrote the screenplays for The Lords of Discipline, The Bride. He wrote the story for The Bride. And no, I'm getting that all mixed up. He wrote the screenplays for The Lord of Discipline and The Bride, and the story for Cherry 2000. Not that it matters all that much, but the only one that I remember is The Bride. I remember that was a big deal when it was coming out. So it was a remake of The Bride of Frankenstein.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was, I think it was critically panned.
Yeah, that's tough. That's a tough one to remake.
Yeah.
You gotta be careful with that one.
I don't know. I don't know how hard it could possibly be. It's
to like remake. Like, I mean, if you touch a classic, you better do a real good job. Like,
well, the thing about it is that you're really not remaking it, or you shouldn't be trying to, because the Frankenstein as a book is already an existing property, and the story of Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein are all in that book. So when they made Frankenstein, they basically made one section of the book, and when they made the sequel, The Bride of Frankenstein, they just pulled from the same book. Mm-hmm. So The Bride is like pulling from the second half of the book, and if he had just some people are just not great at making book adaptations, I guess.
It's probably pretty hard. Like,
yeah.
I've never tried my hand. I don't think I would.
I haven't even tried to make a movie, so I'm not going to knock them too much. But, you know, I'm no filmmaker, but I know what I hate.
Yeah. I wouldn't even know where to start with something like that.
Right.
Who we got? We got music by Jerry Goldsmith.
Let me get this last.
Oh wait,
dude.
yeah, you got Rambo. Yeah.
Yeah,
I jumped ahead.
The guy.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. The real screenwriter, in my opinion, is Jer. Oh,
he did Glory. Oh.
Yeah, he wrote Glory. We covered that in episode 32. We did. He wrote Rambo: First Blood Part 2. We covered that in our very first episode.
Oh wow!
And then he did The Devil's Own, which I hear is a pretty good movie.
So I don't know if I've seen it. I don't know if I've seen it.
Yeah, that's one with Harrison Ford and I think Brad Pitt. So it looks like it would be a good
every
movie.
Harrison Ford / Brad Pitt movie. Yeah.
I think that's who's in it. I may be mistaken.
Maybe I have seen it. I feel like I've seen so many movies that I don't even know what I've seen most of the time, unless like I've seen the trailer for it or like the screen grab of the DVD cover or something. That's again aging myself because I recognize like DVD covers and VHS covers from Blockbuster.
Right.
Like now people don't even see that stuff unless they go to the movies and see the poster. Or they're scrolling, I guess. I guess you still see it on like Netflix, but they're not the same.
Right. It's not the same. Here's what's funny is that as you get older, you'll find that you'll rewatch a movie that you know that you've seen. You know 100% that you've seen this movie. But it's been so long that you watched it that it's like watching it for the very first time. And that's happened to me a couple of times as I've done this show.
Yeah, all the time. The other day, like we were trying to find a Christmas movie to watch and, you know, all the usual ones we've already cycled through. And what did I bring up? While You Were Sleeping with Sandra Bullock. Like, I'm not like a big rom-com person, but that's like one of the only ones I like. It's like more of a comedy than it is anything else. But it's an old movie and I hadn't seen it in a long time. And it was like watching it for the first time again. It's an underrated movie. If anybody's looking for something feel good, it's kind of feel good.
Did you guys feel good after you watched it?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. He said it was really good. We watched it, not some feel good movie last night. We watched Saltburn. I'm not going to get into it. It was really good, but it was a little uncomfortable. Don't watch it with your family.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Nobody. We got music by one Jerry Goldsmith. He has 257 composer credits to his name, and that's 257 more than I have. Oh, he did LA Confidential. That is a great movie. I watched that when I was way too young. Very noir adult film. Not adult film, but you know what I mean. Yeah. Not for children. Not for children. Yeah.
Rated R.
He did Star Trek First Contact, Congo. Ooh, we did Mulan. Nice. And Air Force One.
Yeah.
I wonder if he did that song with Christina Aguilera on Mulan. The one that got her famous.
Doubtful.
Maybe she was nicer back then.
Right. Absolutely. Actually, was she even alive back then? She was probably.
Yeah, Mulan. She did the music for it.
No, I'm talking about Air Force One. I thought you were talking about Air Force One.
I don't know. I was alive and she's older than me. So I think she's like 2 years older than me. So
okay. All right. Well, then she was alive then. Awesome. All right. She was probably a wee tyke.
Yeah. Watching Air Force One. Eliza Dushku was in that movie too. She was Harrison Ford's daughter, and she's.
You know what? I need to watch Air Force One. You know what else she was in? I'm 90% sure that it was Eliza Dushku. I'm 90% sure it's the same one. But she was in True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yep, she's her daughter.
Yes.
I love True Lies. Right. And Jamie Lee Curtis. And she's also Faith in Buffy.
Right.
So I didn't like her for a long time because she's a bad guy.
Oh, because she was a bad guy. Did you see? There was a show that she was also in called The Dollhouse. Did you see that?
The Dollhouse. Yep, saw that.
Yeah, I thought
watched it. I watched it because she was in it, and Joss Whedon did that too.
Right. I just started watching because I'm not a huge Joss Whedon fan. Not because I don't like his work, it's because it just like I'm watching stuff that's attracted to me. I'm not watching it because he made it, right? So I like that Western.
Didn't he make the original Avengers?
Yeah, not the original. Yeah. He made the second movie, Age of Ultron.
That was a really good movie.
I enjoyed that movie. I absolutely enjoyed that movie. the Avengers were doing the thing that Avengers is supposed to do, and I really liked that movie. I want to rewatch it right now.
I think it was Kenneth Branagh that did the first Avengers.
No, it wasn't him. He did Thor. I can't remember
that
who
was
did
it. That was the one, because I remember being surprised to see Kenneth Branagh's name.
Right, right.
Like the dude in Harry Potter?
Right.
Like that Kenneth Branagh? Okay.
Well, here's the thing. He's like associated with theater, like
I knew that.
Shakespearean stuff. And I think the reason they got him is because they wanted the movie to be Shakespearean. But unfortunately, there was some pacing issues with Thor, and it didn't work out the way it should have. And I was a little bit disappointed. And the main reason I was disappointed is because I had to walk 2 miles to get to the movie theater to watch that movie, to be disappointed, and then walk 2 miles back. I mean, it was all right, but it wasn't worth walking 2 miles to go see.
I agree. I like the other Thor movies much better.
Right, absolutely. So
I think I like Ragnarok the best. I know we've gotten off on a tangent here.
Right. We have gotten off on a tangent, but I will say that I didn't like for me the worst Thor movie was Thor: The Dark World. That
I didn't like that one either.
Yeah, kind of the bottom of the barrel, but
didn't like that one either. I really did like Ragnarok. It was very different than what I thought it was going to be.
Right.
Enjoyed it.
So, well, that's it for the opening credits. We have passed the Rubicon. Yep. So, just for a couple of announcements that I have, I'd like for everyone listening to sign up for our newsletter for a chance to win a Felix the Cat t-shirt. That's right. The giveaway is still going on. Just go to the website, backlickcinema.com. You'll be greeted with a pop-up. And instead of being annoyed by the pop-up, put your email in the pop-up, sign up for the newsletter, and enter yourself for a chance to win the shirt. It's a cool shirt. This is a podcast. You can't see the shirt on the podcast, but if you go to the website, you can see the shirt. You'll be amazed by the sweet design, and you will be compelled to buy it. But instead of buying it, just put your name in the email thing.
There you go.
And get the newsletter. Also, let's see. I have some new blogs out. So there was a time, like when I first put the website out, when I first started the podcast, so I started the podcast in, I guess, 2020. And so for the longest time, I only had 2 blogs on the site, and one was about myself. And so I was like, maybe I should write some more blogs, because here's what happens, right? I listen to a lot of podcasts, and somebody will say something in a podcast, like I need to respond. So I'll write these long diatribes in a letter to the person, and I'm thinking, like, you know what? These letters could be blog posts. So now I've gone and tried to write more blog posts. So like one of the new blog posts that I have is like, should you as a podcaster pay for guests? So I wrote my opinion about that, because that came from like a thread on a Reddit, a podcasting Reddit. So I was like, I should put these thoughts and feelings in a blog.
I don't know about paying. I mean, if it's somebody like actually like that you have to go through their agent to get to, because I have a nonprofit job now, and I put on live programs, and I do deal with that, like trying to get, because I live in Louisville, and trying to get like Jack Harlow or anything, you got to go through his manager or anybody else. Like there's a poet laureate, I think named Silas House, and he charges $10K for,
Right.
If somebody like is going to draw like a ton of publicity to your, or they're just like really going to add a lot of value to your podcast, maybe you pay them, but like that's a lot for like just a podcast. Right. You know what I mean? Like we don't make a ton of money.
Right. Yeah,
that's like we're big timers.
I feel that if you're at the risk of giving too much away for the blog, but I feel like if you're a podcast that can afford to pay somebody $10,000 to appear in your show, then you don't need that person. Your show is already popular enough.
Yeah, you're good. You don't need anybody else. You're good. Like,
you're making bank. You're already making so much money that you don't need to pay somebody to be. It's like there's no way that person can be more popular than your podcast is already. No, if you can make $10,000 off of your podcast, right?
No.
So
that's the dream. That is the dream.
Right, that is the dream. Also, this is something that I'm thinking about starting. So this is the last of the announcements, but I'm thinking about actually using the Twitch channel. Like I set up a Twitch channel when I first started, and I never really used it. I've played with it a little bit, but I never actually used it. So, but now I think I want to try to use it. So there's a game that I've gotten into called Marvel Snap. Have you heard of it?
My husband probably has.
Right.
He plays everything. If I could show you what's happening in this room right now, it's insane. He builds gaming PCs like himself. This is a nerd's dream in here.
Right. He's all about that life. So, what I'm doing is that it started off as a mobile game, but now it's kind of spread to PC, and it's a card game. It's very addicting. I really like it. It's based on Marvel Comics. So I am thinking about streaming that game. And like this will air 2 weeks from now. This will air after the new year. Nice. So if I do it, then I've already been doing it.
Oh, he's predicting the future.
I'm predicting the future. But
prediction.
But if I haven't done it yet, then maybe later.
You're like, never mind. I didn't say that. It didn't happen.
No, I'm just saying maybe I postponed it for one reason or another. But yeah, I'm thinking about doing, if I do it, it's going to be every Sunday morning. It's going to be called Sunday Morning Snap on Twitch. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So
do it.
Let's go on. Thank you. Thanks for the encouragement. And I think that I get to show people how poorly I play that game.
People love watching other people play games. People love it. Oh my God, my son. It's like he just turned for like years on YouTube.
Right.
Just him watching somebody else play Roblox, Minecraft, Overwatch, any of it. And I'm like, are you going to play it?
Right.
He's like, well, I'm going to watch them play it. I'm like, you're going to watch them play it for 5 hours? Okay. Does it make you better? I don't know. I don't game anymore. I gamed when I was younger and have not in a long time.
Right. So that's it for the announcements. And now we're going to go to our favorite parts. So now we're at that part of the show where we just get to talk and gab about the favorite parts that we had of this movie. But before we actually talk about our favorite parts, what's your your emotional connection to this movie?
Oh, I don't know. The year was let's just think about 1999. Let's think about that. I was a freshman in high school. Yeah, that's right. Freshman in high school in 1999. I think I saw the movie in the theater, really liked it, bought it on VHS. We bought so many VHS tapes. Bought it on VHS, maybe DVD. I don't know. It was 99. Either way, I had it and I just watched it all the time. Because that's how, hey, kiddies, gather around. We didn't used to have streaming and get to watch literally whatever we wanted at any given time. We had to own those movies or go to the store, the Blockbuster, or your local hometown video and rent it. So I still have all of my DVDs. I don't have my tapes. I wish I had because they've made a comeback. I wish I'd kept them. But I know I just watched that movie like a lot, and I don't know what like drew me to. Oh, that's a lie. I do know. I was obsessed with Egypt as a kid.
Awesome.
Obsessed with like hieroglyphs and Egyptology and all of that stuff. And I'm still pretty into it. But that like a movie about that with, of course, really attractive people in it was a draw for me. And also it's just funny. It's a really funny movie. Like very funny.
That's pretty awesome. The funny thing about it is that what you said that you were obsessed with Egyptology and that sort of thing. What I've discovered is that like the Mummy is like Universal's property. It's not like Dracula or Frankenstein that are adaptations of previous works. Nope. This is wholly something that they made up. I forgot. I did a little bit of research on it. I didn't write anything down. But so the guy who wrote The Mummy for Universal, he was a reporter that did I guess he did he wrote up a story like on an Egyptian tomb. Like he was the reporter. He was sent to Egypt and he covered the opening of one of the Egyptian tombs. And
probably Tutankhamun back in the day, because that was a huge deal.
Right. Yeah. That was a huge deal. And he was fascinated about it. And apparently he thought, what if we woke up this mummy and he started killing everybody? So he wrote the story for Universal. And that's how we got the Mummy.
Yep. I did do an episode on it.
Awesome.
I did a long one. It's a long episode. It's pretty freaking long on movie monsters. And it includes all of them, like every Universal movie monster, all the movies, the books they're based on, and so on.
Awesome. I got to find that episode.
I love Universal movie monster. Oh, I just remembered another of my favorite horror movies, American Werewolf in London. It's the first like werewolf effect where you see David transition into the werewolf, his whole face.
Right.
And I got to see at Universal Makeup Studios the actual prosthetic piece. It was like a full headpiece, and it had these like pumps inside of it that inflated the face and stretched it, and it was awesome.
That sounds awesome.
It was. Yeah. I always try to go to that, like when I'm at Universal and nobody wants to go with me. I always want to go to the makeup show, the horror makeup show, and nobody wants to go. And I'm like, you're missing out. It's a good time.
So what was one of your we're going to try to narrow our favorite parts to 5, but there are some points that I wanted to touch on. So what's one of your favorite parts of the movie?
One thing that's sticking out to me is the fact that they did stay true to like the 1920s, I think it was, kind of aesthetic with poor Rachel Weisz and her shaved off eyebrows and like blown on. I'm like, y'all didn't have to do that to her. You did not have to do that to her. But everything else seemed pretty era appropriate, except for Brendan Fraser's very clean, like bowl cut swoop deal that he had going on. I loved all that. One of my favorite parts, I love the whole beginning, like where we get to see like Imhotep and his journey and how he becomes the mummy and how he becomes cursed. And he has the Humdai, that's what it's called. The curse performed on him, the worst curse of the worst. And, you know, Anck-su-namun or Anck-su-namun, however you say her name, is painted gold. And the king comes in and she's got the smudge on her. And I love it because I'm like, oh, that's like a 007 reference too. Like all kinds of different references in there. I think that's fun.
Right.
I got a lot of favorite parts. That's just one of them, is how they like kept it in every era, like, you know, as close to historically possible as at least we think it is. You know what I mean? Like, we don't really know. We know pictures of, you know, the time that the movie's based in, but we obviously don't have any pictures of people in Egypt. We don't know what they looked like. I assume they were just painted gold. Some of them. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Also,
who's to say?
What's interesting about it? I mean, directors and artisans they're gonna take artistic license anyway, regardless of what people of those times actually look like. But you touched on our first scene, and one of the notes I put down for that is, did Imhotep escape from jail? Because remember when everybody was found out, Imhotep was taken into custody. And then in the next scene, he's racing towards like the city of the dead to like revive Anck-su-namun. So my question is, how is he escaping through the desert?
I'm guessing he busted out because remember he had loyal priests. And they got mummified with him.
Right.
So I think they're the ones that busted him out.
Yeah.
And then he runs to go revive her after I can't remember what you call that, but it's what do they call it in Japanese? I can't remember. The stomach stabbing.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember.
Hold on.
I'm not gonna remember.
She offed herself.
She does that. And then he goes to revive her.
It rhymes with insecurity, something like that.
Are you saying a wrestling term?
No, yeah, I am saying a wrestling term, but I'm sure that's what it rhymes with.
Yeah, we watch a lot of wrestling.
No, I'm so wrong. That's totally wrong. Seppuku.
We watch a lot of wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. At least I used to. Seppuku or sepulcher.
It's seppuku or something. Yeah, it's one of those.
It's one of those, right?
I think everybody gets it.
That's what she was doing.
Yeah. God.
So also another question is like, and that scene would have been helpful of his priest fussing him out. And the other question I've had, and it's funny, right? Because I've heard this question posed on a different podcast, is that he created a crime so heinous that they was going to give him, they was going to curse him with like the worst curse possible. Yep. A curse so bad that they're only going to perform it once. So his curse was giving him superpowers. That's not the curse I would have chosen.
I don't know. I'm like, why would you like give him the option? Well, I mean, they did believe that your soul could come back into your body, I guess, in the afterlife, you could retrieve it from the underworld. But I'm like, if you know that's a possibility, why would you like make that an option for him to be able to come back? And then when he comes back, he's like the most powerful thing on earth.
Right.
You know that he's like evil in life. I don't know, is he evil? Like he just, had an affair with the pharaoh. Wasn't it the pharaoh's mistress? So was he having an affair?
It's like,
I don't think you can have an affair with somebody's mistress, but
yeah, you can.
Whatever.
Especially with a king. Like a king has concubines, right? And they're that's an official statement.
That was just his favorite one,
right? That was his favorite one. You can't mess around with the king's concubine. Like if it was a dude of a lower station, you can mess with that dude's concubine, but not the king's.
So he did a no, and he got put in the coffin alive with a bunch of scarab beetles, and that's also one of my favorite parts is when the scarabs like hatch out of their little jewel thing and start just running all over the place. And when the really terrible jailer has the scarab beetle go into his skin, and you see the terrible CGI of it like going all the way up his face and into his brain, and then he dies. That's one of my favorite parts because he was terrible to begin with.
Right. Also, still it may be bad CGI, but it's still horrifying.
If I had something under my skin, it's gone. By skin, like it's coming right off. We're gonna cut that off. And no, that's one of my things. I don't like that.
Right. So one of my favorite parts was the opening horse battle. I really enjoyed that. I really liked the scenery, the staging, how the majestic of it all, and the confusion. You had the two battle lines and the horses charge, and then you had Benny because he's such a horrible person. It's like, you with me, Benny? He's like, yes. And it's okay, let's get ready. And then Benny starts to run away. I was like, oh man, he's
like, Benny, looks like you're on the wrong side of the river.
Oh no, not
the Americans and the horses on one side.
Yeah, that's a great part, but I wasn't thinking about that part. I was like at the very beginning when they were fighting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when they were fighting the I forgot who was running them down, but it was an opposing force, and it was running them down on horseback. And O'Connell and his crew, they were like against the ramparts or whatever, shooting at the horses and whatnot.
And then the wind keeps whipping through the sand. They're in the city of the dead. That's when he first went to the city of the dead. Yeah.
Right.
And then Benny takes off.
Right.
That Benny the snake.
Right. So but that was, I really love that particular scene. Yep. All right. So hold on a second. My tablet just decided, hey, I'm going to take a break. It's like, no, don't take a break. Stay with me, tablet. I've only got it set to stay on for 10 minutes. You would think that would be long enough. There we go. It's back. So another favorite part I have was the meeting between with Rick. Like when what's her name?
Evelyn,
Phoebe. Thank you, because I forgot her name already. So when Evelyn meets Rick for the first time, the reason this is one of my favorite parts is when I think about this movie, this is what sticks in my memory. It's like, because that meeting was kind of a classic meeting. And the other thing about it was like, somehow, for some reason, because I've seen Brendan Fraser in previous movies and they were comedies. So I've seen him in Encino Man, and I've him in, what's the other one?
Airheads.
I didn't see that one.
I love that movie. It's on Hulu.
I'm trying to think of the other movie I saw, but they were comedies, right? And so that's how I saw him. So when I saw him in this movie, it did not meet my preconceived notion of what he should be as an actor, which is kind of weird. But it kind of shifted my expectations of him, and it took me a while to readjust to Brendan Fraser in this role. I was like, oh my God, what's wrong with it? It seems like his voice is too deep. Or
I bought into it like immediately. I'm like, oh, he's an action star now. That makes total sense. It's like, if they're going to get him in good shape for like George of the Jungle, you know, where he's not even doing anything. I'm like, well, now you've showed us that he could be like in Marvel shape. Let's make him an action hero.
Right. So
but he can't do that anymore.
No, we're doing it all the time.
Yeah.
So, the thing is that this whole scene was great. The whole scene where it's like she's meeting him for the first time, and then she's trying to get him out of jail, so she goes to the warden to try to haggle him, and they do this Bugs Bunny thing where they're haggling over the percentage of the treasure that the jailer would get if they found the treasure in the city of the dead. And then he says he wants 30%. No, she says, I'll give you 30%. And he says,
yep.
I'll take 25%. She says, deal. Because they're going up and down on the percentage. And she fools him into
he'd be
taking
willing
25%.
to give her more. He's a very lonely man, and like puts his hand on her leg. She smacks him, and he gets angry. And that's when he's like, "Okay, hang him."
Right.
Yeah. And Brendan Fraser kisses her too in the jail cell, and then he's like, at the end, or in another part, he's like, "Well, I thought I was going to die."
Yeah.
It seemed like a good option. Wow, that's kind of insulting.
She asked, "Why did you kiss me?" And he's like, I was about to die. And she was upset. She was upset because he didn't tell her the reason that she wanted, which is because you're beautiful, or because I was attracted to you.
Yeah, it's like, no, that's what she wanted to hear, but he didn't say that.
Right. It wasn't what she, and probably not truthful, right? He was probably lying to distance himself from her.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, they were supposed to be doing business, not getting cozy.
Because at the same time, you can see, like you can see that he's attracted to her, and at the same time, he's growing closer to her. Like he's like throwing her hints that he likes her.
Yeah, I love that, where he teaches her how to punch, and she's drunk, and she's not drunk, and it's great.
There are parts in the movie where they're almost kissed, so that's pretty cool. But at the same time, I hope that was funny how he said it seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah.
What's another one of your favorite parts?
Oh, mine, just the CGI in general. So one comes to mind when the mummy sucks up all the water and like blows it through the tunnel. Is that the second movie or is it the first?
That's probably the second movie.
It's the second movie, but still, it's good. But the CGI in the first one, all of like the body regeneration slowly, like seeing the nerves, like the nerve system, and then the musculature come on over until he's a fully formed man. I love when he gets scared by the cat.
Yeah,
in Evelyn's room, the cat hisses and scares him away. I'm like, that's perfect, because they believe that cats were the like farriers to the underworld, that they took souls to the underworld. I love cats. I have 4 cats.
Awesome.
That's a lot of cats. There's none in the room right now, but there's a cat bed in the corner. There's usually a cat in every room of our house. But that scene to me was very funny, where he's afraid of a cat, and then he swirls into a cloud of dust. I liked all the biblical parts of it, like the oh my god, why am I blanking on it? The plagues of Egypt.
Right.
And then the doctor who's with the American men is like, he's reciting all the verses from, I think it's it's not Revelations. It's the one where they kill all the firstborn sons of Egypt. It's early. It's in the New Testament when God was all spiteful.
Oh no, you mean the Old Testament. That was
Old Testament,
the plagues of Egypt. Right.
Spiteful God in that one. Scary. Sending plagues and taking firstborn sons.
Right. Yeah, I don't think they ever got to the firstborn sons. I think they did the
locusts.
The locust, right? And
they got to that.
Right.
But like, why was that his thing? I wonder.
I don't know.
I don't think that was explained. Like, why we started going biblical with it. It's like, why is he doing that?
He's showing off.
He's not Christian. How would he even know that?
He's showing off. He needs to show everybody what a big baddie is. Like, I'm going to bring these plagues because that's the thing that I do now.
It's like, I don't think Christianity existed then, did it? So why would he know that? Interesting. He learned things.
Well, this was before Christianity, so this would be like in Jewish
Judaism?
Tradition.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So
it's a fun step when you think about it.
Right. It's always fun to bring back the plagues.
Yeah. Locusts, all of it. Yeah, that's great.
So another one of my favorite parts is Jonathan pretending to be a slave. Jonathan particular. So my favorite parts of the movie is Jonathan. Like Jonathan is my favorite parts. So the parts of the movie where Jonathan is in it is my favorite part. And so
he's pretty terrible.
And so when, just because of his terribleness. And so of my favorite Jonathan parts is him pretending to be not a slave or like enthralled.
Zombie, whatever they are.
Right,
I don't know what they are. They're just taking over.
Pretending to be enthralled because he's running away. He's trying to get away from something. And then he sees all these people that are enthralled saying Imhotep.
They have the sores.
Right,
boil,
right,
plague,
right. And then he starts doing the thing so they ignore him. So that's wonderful.
That was hilarious.
Yeah, it's so funny. And he's just funny in this movie. So
him talking the lady into believing that the house is his.
Right.
And all that. Like, oh my God. No, he's the worst.
All right. So we're down to two more favorite parts.
Let me think. I like the whole end scene where he's got Anaxunamun's corpse and she's laying on the table next to Evie and her soul comes up from the underworld. Like he's got her soul back and it goes into her and she, breathes and comes back to life and starts trying to kill Evie. That is terrifying. That is definitely something I would be afraid of. And then all of the priests, the mummified priests, come back and start fighting. But you can cut them apart and they don't die. And Brendan Fraser is fighting like halves of them, slices them in half, and then fighting the upper half of their skeleton. I love all that.
Yeah.
And the fact that they found like a massive treasure also.
Right.
A massive treasure.
Absolutely. Another one of my favorite parts is you had talked about this earlier, but Benny's various religions, when he's cornered by Imhotep, and then he has all of these like religious medallions around his neck, and he starts going through them one by one, praying in the native languages of those religions to try to pray for deliverance. And then he comes across the Jewish Star of David, and then he starts praying in Hebrew, and then the mummy recognizes that, and then has him work for the mummy or whatever. But that was so funny. I really like that.
As his interpreter.
Right.
Is kind of funny.
But it's amazing how just the kind of shiesty person that he is, that he would have backup religious plans, right?
It's terrible. He can't even pick a religion. He's so wishy-washy. He's just whatever works for me at the time is the thing I'm going to do.
Right.
That illustrates his character's personality very well. If you only saw one scene of Benny and you saw him with all these medallions on and already knowing these prayers in their specific languages, you're like, oh, this dude is a snake.
Right,
he is a snake in the grass. He just adapts to whatever situation that he's in, not for good reasons, but only to serve himself.
Right.
And that's how he's still alive.
Right. Absolutely.
Because he's slippery.
So what's your last favorite part?
Just that Rick and Evie end up together. I mean, that's what everybody wanted the entire time.
Right.
I was happy they ended up together. I didn't think it was going to be a love story, but it turned out to be. And I liked their relationship, that they weren't, as many movies of the day were, woman sees boy or woman sees man and just is immediately smitten, or the other way around. Neither one of them really liked each other. He thought she was stuck up, prim and proper. She proved him wrong. And she thought he was just some gross, deviant, and he proved her wrong. And they complement each other really well. And I like their relationship throughout the whole movie. And I think they had really good chemistry too. You see so many movies where the romantic leads have no chemistry and you're like, my God, do they really think they're pulling this off? This is not, what am I thinking of? Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman.
Right.
Oh my God.
I've heard that. I have a really hard time identifying good chemistry and bad chemistry. So, but to me, they look really good together. And I enjoyed their playful back and forth between each other.
Yeah.
I like how they pretended to push each other away or pretended not to like each other, when it was I think that like Evie was smitten with Jack when she first saw him. Yeah, even though she was not Jack, but Rick. Even though she was disgusted, but at the same time attracted to the disgustingness of him. And then like she first saw him in jail, dirty and beat up.
Yep.
And then the next time she saw him, he's clean. Right. And she was taken aback by
and she had on that like black veil and a whole bunch of eyeliner.
Right.
And it's like, oh, now you can see each other.
Right, right. She was she was definitely smitten especially at that point.
Oh, I think he was too.
Right. But like I said, I'm not a good judge of such things. Like you say that, like the example that you use from like the Star Wars film, the prequels, terrible. Like I wouldn't be able to tell. It looks okay to me.
And they seem to hate each other.
There's another example too. There was so there's a movie called An Officer and a Gentleman, and in that movie, the two leads, well, like one lead, Richard Gere, like he was fine, but the other lead, Deborah Winger, I don't think it's that she didn't like Richard Gere, but she had some sour opinions about him. But I couldn't. Right. But I couldn't tell from their performance.
Yeah.
And she really doesn't like talking about the movie. I don't think she had a great time on the set. But
I can imagine.
And a lot of that had to do with Richard Gere. So they didn't have like real chemistry in real life, but I couldn't tell from watching the movie. It looked authentic to me. So yeah, so some people can say, yeah, I can see it, and I was like, I can't tell. So
yeah, I can tell a lot of the time. Like that's one of the things I'm able to tell pretty easily is that people like. It's something I try not to do. One of my dark gifts is like. I like pop off and just like say stuff about people, and not like bad stuff, but like about their personalities from like, talking to them for a little while. And I feel like I can figure people out like really quickly. And I think that was part of like being good at law.
Right.
And also at writing, podcast, stuff like that. I just feel like I'm able to tell people's personalities and things about them really well, like kind of profiling them like I were an FBI profiler. And I just listened to the Mindhunter book on like audiobook, and it was very interesting.
Right.
And I was like, oh, this dude sounds like me. Like the way he talks about people and like the assumptions he makes. It's not like assumptions. It's like an educated guess about somebody just based on like, I don't know. I think I can tell that when I watch movies too. I'm like, I can tell this actor's like real personality, even though they're really good at acting. I can still tell their personality and that they don't like their co-star at all, or they have like no chemistry with them and no romantic feeling for them. I think a lot of movies, like if somebody is in a relationship with somebody who doesn't want them to be doing like romantic scenes or sex scenes with their acting partner, you can kind of tell like they're being real scared. Like, oh God, I don't want to get in trouble. Oh, I don't want to get in trouble.
Right.
I cannot look like I'm enjoying this, even though it's fake. I cannot look like I'm enjoying it. I'm going to get in a lot of trouble when I get home.
Absolutely.
Brendan Fraser, I don't think he's one of those people. He seems like such a nice guy.
He seems so. I believe that too. So my last favorite part is going to be you remember the pilot Winston?
Yep. Oh, I love Winston.
I love Winston. I like that part when they came up to him. Two is because they want to use him to fly them to the city. Yep. And he asked them, "Is it dangerous?" And they say yes. And he says, "Will I die?" And they said probably. And it was like, oh, let's do it then.
He's in. He was all upset he didn't die in the war.
Right,
like, he didn't go down in a blaze of glory like his friends. He's just like sitting in the desert, hanging out.
Right. He's just waiting for
a phonograph.
Right. He's waiting for that one last opportunity.
Yep. He wants to like go out in the blaze.
Right. Have a glorious life. And it's that whole scene and the part where they're flying to Imhotep, and Imhotep calls upon a sand wall, and that's one where the special effects really worked extremely well, was a sand wall, and that brought the plane down. So all of that was great, but just the beginning of that, where they encounter Winston, was just he was just so cheerful. Like he was cheerful, and he was I don't know. I can't think of the other word.
He was like morose.
Yeah,
like you could
thank
tell
you.
he was like so disappointed that he didn't die in
Right,
the war.
right.
Like, what's wrong with you? You're mad that you didn't die.
He was cheerfully morose. Yeah, that is exactly how I think I would put that. So, and then there were like a couple of questions. Like one of the questions that I had is like near the end of the movie, they encountered the camels that were there at like the beginning of the movie, like when they first got to the not the beginning of the movie, but when they first got to the city of the dead.
Yep.
And then it seemed like at least a week before they got back to the city of the dead, and the camels are still there. Benny is trying to load the camel with gold. The camels are still there. I was like, what? They were there the entire time?
I mean, I know they store water in their humps, so maybe. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. But that was just a question I had.
No camels were harmed in the filming of The Mummy.
I hope not.
As far as I know.
Good. Excellent. I'm glad you found out, because I didn't watch all of the credits.
I did. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it said that. Movies back then made like a big point, because that was like around the time where like, treatment of ASPCA and PETA and all that got big, and everybody's like, no, we didn't harm any animals making this film. If it looks like we did, we didn't. It was a special effect.
Right. And they still do it. They still want to make sure people know.
You have to. Yeah.
Right. You
can't just be like showing an animal getting hurt and not put that disclaimer. If you hear my daughter, I'm sorry, she's kicking the floor.
No. No, at least not yet. Maybe I'll hear it in the playback. So
yeah.
That's it for our favorite parts. And now we're going to talk about the top 10 trivia.
Oh, yeah. All right. This is one that I did know. Brendan Fraser nearly died during the scene where he was hanged, when his character was hanged in jail. And Rachel Weisz said that he stopped breathing and had to be resuscitated. And I know that injury actually is a chronic injury for him. And that's why he doesn't do any kind of action movies anymore.
Right. And
that's the reason he's like permanently injured from that.
Right.
I think he hurt his spine.
Back. That'll hurt your spine. So I guess we can thank the director and stunt coordinator for ruining Brendan Fraser for us.
Yeah, what's that about? He's an American treasure. How dare they?
Yeah, that's why you have that's why you have stuntmen. Yeah, that's precisely the reason you have stuntmen. It's angering.
They know how to fall.
Yeah,
they know how to fall. And I watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for the millionth time the other night, and that reminded me of it.
And the other thing is that as I do this show, I find out there are a lot of places where actors almost die. They almost drowned. They almost fall. A lot of almosts happen to actors making these movies. So,
I mean, I know it's cool to brag about doing your own stunts, but do you want you could very easily end your career doing something like that. Like, don't do it. Don't do it.
Absolutely. So up next is, in one scene, Benny is shown with a sack full of gold, which he's trying to load onto a camel. Benny pulls the camel by the reins, but the camel doesn't budge. The camels all, for some reason, hated Kevin J. O'Connor.
That's strange. That's very strange.
Animals be like that sometimes.
Animals had a preference for people. Okay. Yeah. That's weird.
Like, they hated him.
That is weird. I'd be like, can we get some new camels? I'm offended. Like, why don't these camels like me?
Right. It could be that's why.
I don't know.
Right. It could be that's why he was on horseback in that other part of the movie.
Oh, that would make sense.
That could be the reason why they had like his group on horses and O'Connell's group on camelback. That could be the reason.
Okay, they did. That's funny. I thought they were on horses because they were American and they were trying to make a point that, the Americans would be on horses.
Right. That could very well be the reason, but the thing with the camels,
they might have changed it up though, because they might have originally had them all on camels and then realized it wasn't going to work.
Right.
That makes sense. Oh, Brendan Fraser, I did not know this, but it makes sense. He was cast because of the success of George of the Jungle, which, again, that makes total sense. He was in extremely, extremely good shape in that movie. Stephen Summers said that he felt that Fraser was a good fit for the kind of character he had in mind. It's like an Errol Flynn, swashbuckling type dude. And I mean, he is that. Like, he's perfect. He was perfect in that role. And so he also said that he understood about the character that, Rick doesn't take himself too seriously. Otherwise, the audience can't go on a journey with him. And he was hilarious. Brendan Fraser was so funny. Like he knew when to be serious and he knew when to be funny, and he did it perfectly.
Yeah.
And Rachel Weisz everybody was funny.
Right. I agree wholeheartedly.
He wasn't very funny.
It was.
He was supposed to be.
He definitely made that movie a joy to watch.
Yeah.
So
that's when I really started really liking Brendan Fraser, was that movie.
Right.
I'd seen Airheads before, and he's really funny in that, but this he was just really good in.
Right. So the library disaster was done in one take. It would have taken an entire day to reshoot if a mistake had been made. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
yeah. Also, it's
I'd be like, nope, I quit. If somebody's like, nope, bye. Nope.
Yeah, that was the library. The scene itself was definitely a oopsie.
Yeah. Oh, when she did that, I was like, I feel you. I was like, that's something I could see myself doing. Yep. I got a lot of empathy for you on that one.
Right.
Oh,
right.
This is funny. I didn't know this. The white nightgown that Evie was wearing when the ship was attacked and it sank became transparent when it got wet. And yeah, they'll do that. It had to be digitally painted white during post-production so the film could keep the PG-13 rating. And everybody's like, no, leave it. And all the directors are like, should we say something? Everybody watching it back. They're like,
I will only
leave it in.
I will only say this. I really like Rachel Weisz, and I'm going to see the unedited version of that scene.
I would also like to see it. I really like her too. They should have left it.
They should have left
it. R-rated The Mummy.
Right.
I'd like to see that.
I want to see the director's cut. Anyway, moving right along.
Yeah.
According to director Stephen Sommers, Universal phoned him the morning after this movie was released and said, "We need another one."
Duh. Duh, it's a no-brainer.
It's so like good. we already know how this movie is going to do. We already know we're going to make so much money off of this movie.
Yeah.
Let's do this again, shall we?
Yeah, it's just so fun. And it felt like there was so much more. Like, okay, now they're together and they can start going on adventures together.
Right.
Their forces combined. She's the brains. He's kind of the brains too. And they're both, and in the second one, she can fight.
Right.
She can fight.
It's funny, right?
Give anything away.
I think when they saw what the box office was doing or the projections, they were like, oh, we got a franchise on our hands, gentlemen.
Yep. And they kept going with it too.
Yes, they did.
They kept going.
Yes, they did.
Probably a little too long. It took a turn at some point. And I'm like,
Probably.
Okay. No. Oh, the production apparently had the official support of the Moroccan army, and the cast members also had kidnapping insurance. Yeah, you're going to need that. And Stephen Sommers disclosed that to the cast only after shooting had finished. So I guess who was the beneficiary of the kidnapping insurance? Was it him? Is a good question.
No, it wouldn't. I don't think it would have been him. It probably would have been the studio. But
well, that's messed up because then they make money if they get kidnapped. Is that how that works? It's insurance. I assume you make money from it. So.
Yeah. I mean, the studio also takes out life insurance on their actors. And then they also have another type of insurance where after the actor is signed and something happens to the actor where not death, but if they get
liability?
Sick or yes, a kind of liability insurance on an actor. So like if they're expecting to make a certain amount of money from that actor being in a film, especially if it's a big name like Brendan Fraser, then or Rachel Weisz, then they can recoup a certain amount of financial loss from that. So stuff like that is common in the industry. But it's funny that they had kidnapping insurance. Like just
That's
in case.
Terrible. I mean, well, I don't want to do it. I guess they didn't tell them because they'd be scared to death the entire time. Be like, why do you have kidnapping insurance on me? What's going to happen?
Right. Just in case somebody decides to snatch you up.
Yeah, I mean, they are famous. That makes sense. They are famous people.
Right.
That makes sense. Ooh.
So the scene in the beginning where I'm saying it wrong. I'm saying
Imhotep.
I-N is Imhotep. That is correct. So the scene in the beginning where Imhotep is mummified, freaked out actor Arnold Vosloo.
Yep.
He had to be in bandages for 4 hours to film the scenes where he was wrapped and put in his tomb. So all I got to say about that is you do realize you're in a movie called The Mummy and you are the titular mummy. So
You're the mummy.
You knew
The
this was
mummy.
going to happen.
Yeah. He's like,
Don't
CGI it on. Just do that. And they're
Don't
like,
start
no.
freaking out now.
That cost $1 million. You're going to put the bandages on and shut up.
Right.
Get in the sarcophagus. Oh, wow. So the tattoos on Ardith Bey's forehead are the Egyptian hieroglyphs that spell underworld, and the ones on his cheeks are the Egyptian hieroglyphs for the word truth. And that's pretty sweet. I just thought they were hieroglyphs that were cool.
Right.
Like, I just got some sick face tattoos. I like this face tattoos.
Yeah, I never knew what those mean. And
No, I had no idea.
And now finding this trivia, it was like, I feel like a hole has been filled.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
They're seekers of truth, the Magi, so that makes sense.
Right, they're seekers of truth.
The underworld,
and they protect actually, in this movie, they're specifically there to try to keep people from awakening
the mummy.
The mummy, right? Because if you wake him up, he'll have superpowers. Like you could have You could have hidden the book. You could have figured out what a book was and hidden the book. But then it would have been a different movie. Then it would have been the guys looking for that book and finding the book and then waking up the mummy. They would have figured out a way to wake up the mummy. So it's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine the way it turned out. Yeah. So finally, Imhotep is a real historical figure, but he wasn't the high priest of Pharaoh Seti I. He was an architect who helped develop the first pyramids in ancient Egypt, most notably the pyramid of Pharaoh Djoser at Saqqara around 2600 BC. His abilities was as such that he was later said to have descended from the gods. His name means one who comes in peace.
Well,
and as far as anyone knows, he's not a despised villain as portrayed in the movie, but much more likely revered as an architect and physician. Seti I was a real pharaoh, but he ruled Egypt around 1300 BC, almost 1300 years before Imhotep had died. Anuxenamun was an Egyptian princess who was the half-sister and wife of Pharaoh Tutankhamun. They lived in the mid-1300s BC, decades before Seti I ruled. So when they made this movie, or when the script was written, or when the original script was written, they basically mixed up a lot of Egyptian figures that were thousands of years apart from each other.
Yeah. So they used real people, but not even close to in the right historical context. They just jumped around. And they're like, people might know these names, and they'll hear them and say, oh, that's a real person. This is a real story.
Right. But otherwise, it can also be said that some of these names might be a little bit common. So, except for Seti, there's no way you can get around Seti the first. But the other names, they could be common names. We won't know for sure. But I think that's what is common to do, is to take different figures from different parts of history and just mash them together and make a fictional tale, because this is a work of fiction. It's not like there's a such thing as real mummies. Well, there are real mummies. They're just not walking around murdering people.
It might be. We don't know. I'm not messing around with any tombs. You don't do that.
Right.
Mummy's curse is called that for a reason. I'm not ever going to know. If you come across a tomb or something closed and it's got hieroglyphs on it, don't open it. Just
don't open it. I don't know, and I don't want to find out.
No, we don't need to know. Don't unleash whatever's in there.
That ends the segment where we talked about the trivia. Now let's go and find out what the critics thought. So now we check around the internets and find specifically Rotten Tomatoes and find out what they thought, the critics, from what they thought about the movie. So the critics gave it a 60%, audience gave it a 75% on Rotten Tomatoes. On IMDb reviews, it has 7.1 out of 10. Very high for IMDb.
That's high, yeah.
Yeah. And I concur with their assessment. So the first person, I can't
believe the audience score is so low though.
Well, it's about the same on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb. And IMDb tends to score lower for some reason. Like on a different movie, if the audience is 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, and IMDb might put it at a 6.8 or 6.9.
Yeah. IMDb grades a little harder. A couple of years ago, maybe like 10 years ago, I watched all the IMDb top 100. They grade pretty hard.
Yeah, they absolutely grade hard.
They're tough graders.
You're never going to find a 10 out of 10 on IMDb reviews.
I don't think there was. There may have been. Maybe Citizen Kane. They're obsessed with that.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah. So Susan Stark of Detroit News, she wrote, "The Mummy fails to reconcile image and tone." So I don't know what that means.
Okay,
and
Susan.
I don't think I agree with this, because it seems to me that the imagery of like the 1930s Egypt, and the characters they're in, and it's like an action adventure film, so it's matching the action adventure feels. It's similar to Indiana Jones or even King Solomon's Mines. It falls within that genre. So I don't know why anybody would have a problem with the image and tone. It looks fine to me. I don't agree with Susan Stark. I don't condemn her. I just don't agree with her. So up next is I don't get it, but it's fine. So up next is Susan Schwartzbaum from Entertainment Weekly. She wrote, "An aggressively eye-popping horror film." Now, I don't think it's a horror film, but it's definitely eye-popping and all that. Yeah,
it's not a horror film. I mean, I guess the original was considered a horror film, the original Mummy, but I don't think this one is.
Right.
I've got a bad review here. Sandra Romani of City Search. Wow. "The jokes are lame, forced, and stretched thin, as is the romance between O'Connell and Evie, and both seem like unwelcome interruptions for the main story." Girl, they are the main story. What are you talking about?
They are the main story.
Like, you just want to watch the mummy regenerate himself? That's not much of a story. It's over in like 30 minutes. If he's just going to regenerate himself, get his canopic jars and, all his organs and take them back in, and then find the Book of the Dead and a Noxune moon. Like that's it. It's over. It's over in 30 minutes.
Right.
We need all the other stuff. Sandra, you're out of line.
Yeah.
And another one.
So.
Carolyn Westbrook of Empire Magazine said that Universal's remake of its own 1930s classic is actually a lot of fun. Its blend of low-rent Indiana Jones style antics, impressive special effects for 1999, and inevitably chaste romance, scoring high in the risible escapist nonsense department. And that is what I would call this, escapist nonsense, and I love it.
Yeah,
you know what? Not every movie has to be high art.
Right,
they don't all have to be like the highest of the high art. We can just watch things for fun sometimes.
Absolutely. I think The Mummy did a good job in really generating that sense of wonder and thrill that audience like sometimes when they go to the movies. Like you want to be, when you go to the movies, you want to be let me speak for myself. I don't watch a lot of like real life stuff, if that makes any sense, when I go to the movies.
That makes sense.
Not stuff that's like too close to home. I like to be transported because my life is hard enough. I don't need to witness somebody else's hard life. So
no, I have nights where I'm like, tonight I think I can watch something a little heavier, and other nights I'm like, I can't do anything heavy. It's got to be just, it's got to be silly, it's got to be funny, it's got to be not real.
Right.
Like, it's got to be fantasy.
Right.
Because really, like, it is hard enough for everybody, like, without let's watch some depressing, documentary, which I do all the time. I do all the time. I watch depressing documentaries constantly.
Right.
But still, I like my nonsense too. And that's what the Mummy's always been for me, is just like escapism. Because when am I ever going to go? Oh, I would love to, but when am I going to go on like an archaeological adventure in Egypt?
Right.
Probably never. I doubt I'll ever get to do that. But, in The Mummy, I get to watch these people do it and, unleash an evil force, which again, hope to never do. I also will never read from a book where I don't understand the language. Evil Dead, if that taught us anything, Evil Dead, also Cabin in the Woods. Like, you don't read out of books where you can't understand them. Like, don't read Latin, don't read Egyptian.
Right.
If nobody takes any other lessons from that movie, take that away.
Right.
Just don't.
Right.
It never turns out well.
And here's the thing. She knew what she was reading. She could understand the words.
She did. And I'm like, girl, why? Like, you know what you're saying. Like, and at least in Evil Dead, I think it's in Latin that they read, or they play the record too. But again, it's all in Latin and they don't have any idea what's being said. But she did know. She could read and write and speak Egyptian, and she knew exactly what she was reading. And I'm like, why would you do that? Why would you do it? And then Rick wakes up and knows what's going on. He's like, Evie, no.
Right.
Aren't you a Bainbridge scholar? Like, you work in the British Museum. I feel like you should know that above everybody else, but whatever. Neither here nor there.
Right. So, well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We have talked about The Mummy. We have examined the behind the scenes of what happened with the movie. And we've talked about what some of the people in the professional critics arena have thought about the movie. And it's time that we bring this lovely episode to a close. The Mummy is, as of this recording, available on streaming. That's it for today. In a fortnight, we'll be back with another exciting movie from yesteryear. It will be another beloved action adventure flick, so I hope that you'll join me and my special guest, Danielle Sunkasey, I hope I pronounced that right, from Comics and Cosmetics podcast for Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Talk about action and adventure.
It's a good one.
Thank you for that vote of confidence. Have you seen Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves? Did you enjoy it?
Oh, yeah, I love it.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think I own it.
I'm glad.
I got boxes and boxes of DVDs.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. Sometimes when I hear people talk about it, like, am I the only one that likes this movie? And I'm in good company.
Yeah.
So you can follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, or Threads at Backlick Cinema. If you post on any of these platforms, I will respond eventually. Especially like right now, Threads and Twitter, those are, and Instagram, those are the ones where I'm usually on heavily. And then the other ones, like, I get to them eventually. So that's the lineup. That's the hierarchy of social media that I have. Don't forget that you can contact us with any questions, comments, or suggestions at fanmail@backlickcinema.com. So, Autumn, do you have any additional plugs?
You can listen to my show on all podcast platforms. I release episodes every Tuesday and Friday. I'm just coming off a week-long break, and it's felt like 10 years for me. I'm going to be back, I think, Tuesday. I told you my social handles, Autumn's Oddcast on most. Yeah, give me a listen. I've got a huge backlog of episodes, like 200 something. So, yeah.
Awesome.
If you like weird stuff and weird people.
And 2 episodes a week. That's just awesome. That's kudos to that schedule.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I mean, the fact that you can do 2 episodes a week, have a family, and then be a guest on this podcast, that is amazing.
I've got like 3 jobs.
I appreciate that so much. So one last time, if you like this show, please help us grow by spreading the word about Backlick Cinema, the podcast. And I know that you've enjoyed our guests, Autumn Grube. So please listen to the Autumn's Oddities podcast. Believe me, it matters. I've been Zoe Richardson. Be safe. Share a movie from yesteryear with your family. Hug your loved ones. And if you're going to be anything, be outstanding.